wrong with Mike?
What's wrong is I cannot stop picking my neighbor's garbage. And if that's wrong, I don't want to be right. I feel some angst coming on. This might take 30 minutes. Well, hi everybody. Hi, Mike here. Let's start out positive. Hats off to Dan, the attentive listener. I was going to shift into the next story, the next rant. Was it going to be when my taint exploded? Maybe. Was it going to be flat earthers reaching out to me? Maybe. But thanks to attentive listener Dan, who's not just a listener, he's a friend and fellow comic. He messages me and he says, "Hey, I heard the episode about the scrounging for clothes. What about the chair from the Kroger parking lot?" And I was like, dang. But then that episode was about clothes, and the chair in the Kroger parking lot is more stuff. So considering how much stuff I've picked out of people's garbage or in random places, let's have an episode about scrounging stuff as a part 2. Then we can get on to when my taint exploded or when flurfers bothered me. You know, I like stuff. I think it's because I grew up poor. I wasn't poor. I grew up poor. I was raised poor. My parents were very, very, very frugal. And I commend them for that. And I've taken that trait and try to live on with it as I take chairs out of parking lots. Let's talk about the red leather chair from the Kroger parking lot, shall we? Here's how it all went down. It was a 3-tripper. I went to Kroger to get my produce and my groceries and all that stuff, and as I was exiting, I saw out towards the fringes of the parking lot, kind of like where the employees park, there's just like this red recliner sitting there. And I looked at it and I'm thinking, what the heck is this thing doing there? It was at an off angle. It was kind of between parking spaces. And so I thought to myself, I think this would be a pretty cool picture. I'll go back home. I only live like 2.5 miles away. I'll grab my camera and my tripod. I'll sit in that chair, and it'll be a cute profile pic for social media or whatnot. And it ended up being that way. As a matter of fact, I should go find it, and it could be the art for this podcast. Oh my, it's like I'm on my 10th, 11th episode or whatever. I'm so experienced. So I went and took the picture. It's cute. And I'm in the middle of a parking lot, sitting down, reading a book. Actually, the book, if I recall, was called A Headache in the Pelvis. We'll talk about that in another episode, but I did have a headache in my pelvis. So it was a cool thing, but then when I sat into the chair, the aromas overtook me. Actually, it was just an aroma. And I know what you're thinking, like, okay, where was that thing? What kind of bed bugs? No, it smelled like brand new leather. It smelled like when you're a kid and you get that new baseball or softball glove, that new leather smell. And I did notice after I got up out of it, it had some knife incisions applied to it. And although it smelled new, it was damaged. The back, where you lean back, it was damaged. Someone tried to spell out on the back of the chair by cutting with a knife, "Karma, asshole." 3 lines. Karma, asshole. Karma was misspelled, but you know what? Sometimes you don't know how much room you got with the letters. Let's just give them the benefit of the doubt. But it occurred to me that this is the result of some sort of breakup, relationship breakup. This was like dude's favorite chair, and whoever. It could have been dude, could have been, it's more likely a dude, let's just be honest. And as a result of the breakup, the incision was made, karma asshole. And I said, do you know what? Despite the fact that this chair says karma asshole, I'm taking it. So I buzzed home another time. My third trip back, I got my youngest kid. Back at that age, she would do anything. She might have been 11, 12, something like that. And I don't want to say too much. I won't say her name, much more detail, because some perv like the guy in the next story might be listening. So we go, take my hatchback, throw it in the back, fits perfectly, take it downstairs, and it's been there ever since. And I use it. Sometimes I sit in it to grade papers. It's super comfortable. There were no bed bugs. And it's been a nice little addition to my living space. That, my friends, was victory. I could cover it with a blanket if someone came over, but I actually proudly display the karma asshole. And I know that my mom and dad were both proud of it. We got pictures of my mom and my uncle in it. My dad's seen it. Everybody gave me their full blessing. And everybody's very proud of Kroger parking lot karma asshole chair. I don't know how much these things cost. It must have been, like a $500 chair. It smelled wonderful. And it still is comfy. Now, that was random. That was just pure chance going to somewhere that was a public place and relieving them of something that may have just ended up in someone's trash, or maybe there's someone out there like-minded like me that might have taken it. The subject of this particular episode is my propensity towards picking stuff out of people's garbage. And I think I live in a pretty clutch neighborhood. I live in Dayton, Ohio. It's kind of a military town. And my neighborhood does have a bit of a transient population. But I think they're people who are generally doing pretty good. I think we have some officers. We'll definitely have some officers in my neighborhood. But they move quite often. They accumulate stuff. And it's different when you pick someone's trash. It adds another personal dimension. So, for example, like my kid's moving away to college, and she was going back this fall, and she's like, I don't got enough boxes. I'm like, here, take these book crates. These plastic book crates. And if it makes you feel better, I took them out of your friend's garbage. So now it kind of adds another dimension. You're like, hey, you see them walking on the sidewalk. They have no clue that you have their book crates that they threw out to the trash. And it's a net zero, gang. If you get something that's not functional and you take it out of the trash and it doesn't work, you just put it right back in the trash again. It was going there anyway. Right now, this microphone is propped up on a very fancy computer desk. It's got all these wheels. It's very sturdy. It can raise up and lower levels. And when I'm not doing this, it's got my PC on it, hooked to a monitor. It's got 2 levels, one for the laptop and a little screen, and then one hooked to the monitor up so I can look at it on top. And it is beautiful. And it doesn't have a single scratch on it. And I don't even know, really, I know the house it came from, but I don't know the people. I kind of want to know who they are, because I have their computer desk. Let me tell you about a couple stories of garbage picking. One's a story of failure. One's a story of victory. The story of failure is due to the fact that I didn't get there in time, and another neighbor picked another neighbor's garbage, but that neighbor wasn't me. And this adds extra dimension because I really didn't want to lose to this guy. So I was walking back from the store the other day, and I walked to Kroger now and back, as I've documented in previous episodes. And this one guy who is military, retired military, it was a cornucopia of things at the curb. There was a fire pit. like the metal fire pit. And later on, there were 2 others that materialized. So there's 3 fire pits. There was a green wheelbarrow. And, it was painted green. So it was the kind of wheelbarrow that was a nice finish because it had a painted coating to help it reduce oxidation. And the current wheelbarrow I have, which I also picked off someone's curb, is starting to rust through at the bottom and starting to leak a little bit. So I'm looking to upgrade my wheelbarrow. And I'm walking back and I'm like, should I just roll this thing home with me? And I should have. Because when I came back, I had a Zoom call with my class, and I came back an hour and a half later, gone. Fire pit was still there. I took the fire pit. And then I actually have a fire pit, and you'd be like, hey, Mike, why do you need another fire pit? Because who knows when you might need an extra fire pit. October 5th is our average last frost date around here. I might want to set a little fire out there next to my plants to get them through another week or 2. And once again, you could always put it back in the trash. Okay, so I lost the wheelbarrow, and you never know who took it. Sometimes you never know. This time I did. I thought it was the scrappers. My neighborhood is very populated on a Thursday night with professional scrappers. So this is what they do. They drive around and they have like these trucks, and they just throw anything metal they'll throw into the back of the truck, and then they'll drive it along the highway haphazardly, nothing tied down. Anything could fall out at a moment. Do not follow these people. And that's what they do. And you could be like, well, why do they do it? Do they do it because they're trying to help the environment? My theory is no. Because I look at their vehicles and I'm thinking, okay, I don't think it's the environment they're looking out for with that vehicle. As a matter of fact, sometimes I wonder if they just say, scrap the vehicle too. It's all a one-stop shop. So they're not really looking out for the environment. And then you could be like, well, it does help the environment. Yes, you're right. Recycling all our metal does help the environment. I just don't think that's their motivations. So what's their motivation, Mike? That's the guy who would challenge me. That's what they all sound like. What is their motivation, Mr. Smarty Pants? Why do they do that? Why do they scrap? Personally, I think it's because felonies are hard to get expunged. It takes a long time for that process. And so that's why they do it. And I got to beat them, because anything made of metal, not my computer desk, but stuff like the fire pit, stuff like the wheelbarrow, I got to get to it first. So I chalk it up to the fact that I got beat by the scrappers. Hey, you know what? They're hustling. Got to hand it to them. No, it was the guy kitty corner across the street from that house. And I saw him out in the front yard, like, hey, talking to someone else, like, hey, how many miles you go? There's some guys riding the bikes that are my neighbors. How many miles? And he's got the green wheelbarrow, the beautiful green wheelbarrow. He took it. And I already did not care. Okay, look, I want to say this. It takes a lot for me not to like you. You need like a second, third strike with me before I really do have. And I think that's because I have a lot of insecurities. I don't really tend to make my mind up about somebody until I do. And then this guy, I've already made my mind up. And then he took my damn wheelbarrow. It wasn't mine, but he took the wheelbarrow. I wanted it to be mine. So why don't I like him? Okay, let's get into that. There's 2 neighbors that I really don't like. And I'll tell you reasons. These are reasons, okay? One, I'm walking to the store. Hey, why are you walking to the store? And I'm like, because I don't like walking in a circle doing nothing. I walk to the store and I get back. Okay, well, where are you working now? So he asked me where I'm working. I tell him I work at the college, He's like, ooh, You must see a lot of really nice looking 21-year-olds. And I'm like, okay. This is what he said to me. This is what he said. This is exactly how he sounds too. Now, I'm embellishing the sound of his voice, but this is exactly what he said. I'd like to have a 21-year-old, but you'd lose everything, you know? Like that's an option for him. So first of all, I'm like, well, and I was being honest. I am being honest when I say this. I'm like, the ones that are that young, I don't find attractive. I mean, just they're too young. It's 21 is, I don't know. There's supposed to be some sort of thing like your age divided by 2 plus 7, right? Man, what does that put me at then? That means that I shouldn't go lower than like, doggone it. I hate doing math with pressure on. We're talking 34 and a half. 34 and a half is my legal limit. 21? No. Look. First of all, I'd lose everything. No, you'd lose half, okay? But secondly, shouldn't you probably be looking in your fantasies for a woman who can rent a car? I think 20. So that creeped me out. And then I got to keep walking, and it was wonderful after that when I walked by myself. Secondly, this guy kept asking me about my garden. So I was killing it with big tomatoes, and I was putting tomatoes out for people to have. And one time I put out some peppers. Now, I don't do that anymore because, one, I'm not killing it with the big tomatoes. I'm killing it with the small tomatoes. So all my tomatoes are becoming like salsa. And all my peppers got put into jars of pickles because I was crushing it with cucumbers. And so instead of putting stuff out at the curb, which I would if I was killing it with the big tomatoes, peppers, those are getting pickled from now on. And here's part of the reason why. Is he was like, well, I was walking, behind your yard, and we were hiking behind my yard. Okay, well, now that's actually being raped by developers, but it used to be a cornfield, and when it was combined, you could walk, and I saw something yellow. What were those? I'm like, those are peppers. By the way, I'm growing yellow peppers next year because they don't go leathery as fast as red ones. And so the thing is, I put a dozen tomatoes out, and then he's like, I took 8 of the tomatoes. Is that too much? And I'm like, I'd rather not know. All right. But chances are, if you ask the question, the answer to the question is what you're asking. I took 8 tomatoes. Is that too much? Well, you got a whole neighborhood, and there's 12 of them, and you took 70 or whatever, 8, 12, 4, 6. 2/3 of them. You took 2/3 of them. So yeah, but I'm not going to say, am I being a pig? See? So I think this guy's got a touch of autism. So I don't like that. But here's what really got me. And this is when I made my mind up. It's not the 21-year-old thing. It's not the what's the yellow things in your backyard thing. It was this. I had a table out front with tomatoes. And so, nice Brandywine tomatoes. They're really good for BLTs and hamburgers and all that good stuff, sandwiches. He knocks at the door, and he's like, do you got any peppers? Can you believe that? He knocked at my door and asked me if I had peppers. And we did. I had some in the fridge. And my wife, very, very graciously, this is her, she doesn't get bitter like I did. And you know what? Here's why I get bitter about this. Do you know how freaking hard it is to grow a pepper compared to a tomato? You got to start peppers in like February, gang. Tomatoes, they pop up by accident. I grow tomatoes by accident. I have to pull them like weeds. So I got a dozen tomatoes at the curb, and this guy just freaking You got any peppers? Imagine if I did that. How about if I went to his house like, you got any beer? You got any beer? How about, you got any 21-year-olds? How old's your daughter? Dear Lord. So it pisses me off that he got the green wheelbarrow. And that's part of the game. Part of the game. If you lose to the scrappers, okay, that's cool. They need the money. They're still, trying to get their thing expunged. They need money. This guy lives in my neighborhood. He didn't, so it's kind of but I guess I don't need a green wheelbarrow. I wanted it. And so that front tire was flat. I could have patched that. I know I could have patched it, but that really stings when you lose to your other neighbor, picking the neighbor's garbage. It's like losing a league game to the rival. It's like losing to the Dolphins. Let me tell you about neighbor guy number 2, and I won versus him. Neighbor guy number 2. These aren't in any particular order, but this guy I really don't care for. Now, let me list off some things, and some of this is going to sound silly. He's probably 15 years older than me, something like that. He always wears Michigan stuff. Okay. If you're not, some of you are not from the local area, but Ohio, Michigan is kind of like our North Korea, South Korea. It's not even a war of violence. It's like a war of bumper stickers and shit. Like, check out my bumper sticker. It's got a little boy peeing on the letter M. It's kind of like that. But, this is Ohio. Michigan's up there. And technically, I want to know if I see somebody. When Michigan was playing for the national championship and they played Loyola Chicago in the semis, and I was really rooting for Loyola Chicago to get to the final game, there's a guy from Michigan, and I'm sorry, you can just tell who's educated at Ann Arbor and who's not. And it was not this cat at the bar. So I have a little sub-theory, not that everybody who wears Michigan stuff is sort of desiring attention, but people who wear Michigan stuff a lot, maybe they're exceptionally proud, but this guy wears a lot of Michigan stuff. Now, that's not it. That's not the whole thing that makes me not like this guy. What was strike number 1.5 with this guy, I went for a run, and it was really hot. And the way I deal with that is I actually take some of these little like TSA size bottles that are about 3 point some ounces, maybe 4 ounces. They're actually supposed to be for putting energy goop syrup crap in and squirting into your mouth. Well, I fill them with water and I put them in the freezer, and they fit really nicely in your hand. So what I'm saying is I can run on a hot day and do a short one or a long one if I have 1 or 2 of these things, because it's really good. This is just side benefit to this rant. This is a really good way to get away with running in 90 plus degree weather, and everybody else is looking at you like you're crazy, but you can really cool your blood down a lot with the hand. Look at that exhibit with all the dead bodies or whatever it is, and they're all cut open. They donated I forgot the name of it, but they donated their bodies to science, or not science, but this exhibit. Look at the hand. Just look at the amount of circulation in the hand. So I can run in 90 plus degree weather. I was only going to get out for 3 or 4 miles. And this guy's out, the guy with the Michigan thing, Michigan gear all the time. He's out with some young boy. I assume it's his grandkid. And he's like riding a bike around. And I run by and he's like, what are you I got to make it a different voice. What are you training for the Middle East? What are you training for the Middle East? So I said, yeah. I just went along with it. And he shut up. I was running by anyhow. We weren't going to have a lengthy conversation. And so I didn't like the Budinsky attitude of like, what are you training for the Middle East? Then guess what? I turn the corner, go around his house. Guess what he's got going on? 8 people on his roof. I should have said, what are these Guys training for the Middle East, you're making them work in this heat. It was pushing 100. You don't care about them, but you don't like that I'm running because you're worried about me. So I don't know what kind of point, if I'm going to talk to this guy again, like we're going to pull down our pants and just swing our things at each other. So that's one thing. But the real thing that I get reminded about very often is that this guy goes for walks. And when he does go for walks, he's got a cane. And he never touches that cane to the ground. He twirls it and then he flips it. He does some sort of martial arts looking thing with it. It's decoration, the cane. And I don't know what he's doing, but it annoys the hell out of me. So Michigan stuff, when are you training for the Middle East? Oh no, there's one more thing. I'm sorry, normally I would have to try to just fake all this energy, but this just starts bubbling up in me, So another time I'm 2 houses down, and because they're raping the cornfield behind my house, they're putting retention ponds in. They dug into 2 neighbors' easements, and they put a drain thing in. And somebody's like, "Hey, we didn't get consulted. You're digging up our place." And they had a meeting with the city engineer. And so we're all like a dozen neighbors around. It's a pretty tense meeting because he's the city engineer and he's taking heat. And it's me and my one neighbor, and my one neighbor has an Ohio State hat on. And we're really hanging on every word of the engineer. And here comes Mr. Cane Flipper, Michigan guy. What are you in the Middle East? Cane Flipper. And he, in the middle of the meeting, which was getting heated, as I said, and this one lady speaks up like, "Well, you're an engineer, but we're also engineers too." And then like the one guy, you could tell he's an engineer. This guy had the engineering, like you could just tell. His pants are pulled up a little bit more. He's got a belt and it's just a little pulled up a little bit more. And he's got like a cell phone holster. If you got your pants pulled up a little bit more than normal, cell phone holster, shirt tucked in, you are an engineer. That's how it works. That's the uniform. So he's asking questions. I'm asking questions. I'm like, "Hey, you assume in your models there's as much water, but you just got the same amount of water every year. But you just said there's going to be no corn there. You know how much water corn uses?" Well, and then we're going back and forth. Then comes Mr. Cane Flipper. He goes right to my neighbor who's, trying to pay attention. He's like, "Hey, maybe next year, huh?" Because he's referring to the Michigan-Ohio State game. He's got nothing to contribute because he lives way far down the road. He doesn't care about whether this place is going to flood and there'll be mosquitoes everywhere. So that's like strike 4 with this dude. He's a cane flipper. He misses color guard. He's a cane flipper. He's such a... So, Cane Flipper throws a sink out. Yay for me. Basement sink. The plastic kind. Exact same model as mine. Perfect. Mine's all stained up. I got it in my basement. But he also throws out a whole bunch of copper pipe. And I beat the recycling pickup truck expungement guys to it. Grabbed it all. That copper pipe down at the A&B, that was like about $10 worth of copper pipe. And we could talk about scrapping at the A&B another time, but I, that was a sweet $10 when I turned my cans in too. And I took it from Cane Flipper with his stupid cane. Not even functional. That cane is like the feathers of a peacock. He's a peacock out there. Look at me. Whoop. Wow. Shimmy. Whatever they call it. Dodge. Parry. Spin. Daffy Duck. That was Daffy Duck. I don't know. Maybe he's got something in martial arts, but I always thought martial arts people were a little bit less pronounced about their martial artism. So where are we at? How am I going to put a tidy bow on this? Thursday night, I'm looking at everybody's trash, and I'm not stopping. I know I might have put a clickbaity title on this. I haven't done it yet, but if I do, disregard it. I don't need help. I'm not going to stop looking at people's trash. I've got so many things that are just perfectly useful and not even a scratch on my little desk I'm talking to you on right now. And it feels good. It feels good. Yeah, keep scrapping your metal, guys, but I'm putting this stuff in my house, and it was going to go and take up landfill. And it feels like victory. And I feel good telling you about it. And I feel like I should say goodbye now. And I feel like I should say, thanks for listening.
Have a question for Mike? Email him at mikecanistero@icloud.com. Bye-bye.